Hello,
Hey everyone!
welcome to DnDTime
DnDTime
Talks, where we discuss all things Dungeons and also Dragons. I am the Pete and Jeremy symbiote. We are one now.
And I'm a leprechaun. I'm not
Oh,
real,
geez.
guys.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing, Jeremy? Jeremy, how are you?
My left shoulder blade is in agony. Oh,
Yeah, you
I
said
made
that
a
right before.
grievous error.
What happened?
Well, you see, I have a mattress pad for my mattress, and Jamie really likes it because it's real squishy. But I don't like it because I like very firm things. So I figured, I'll try the mattress pad again. It was an error. Hurts a lot. My body is in pain.
I'm
How
sorry,
about you,
Jeremy.
Pete? How are you? Is your body in pain?
My body is just fine and regular and normal. My body is the way it always is, which
That's
is fine.
pretty rad.
Yeah.
I see we've got a bunch of folks hanging out in the chat. I hope you guys are preferably on the Pete side of the body deal, not like in the
average. Yes.
Yeah, in the more average, maybe even better, right? If you're feeling particularly good today, that'd be good too. I see.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, we got Bionic Sheba, Farcoon, Nerds. Good to see you, Nerds. Opal
Hello.
Dragon, Max, the whole gang's hanging out, and of course, the Forgotten One as well. The Forgotten One, I'm glad you're good. I know you had the tornado warning. I hope that doesn't do anything bad. I hope you're all right, bud. Be safe.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, it sounds terrifying.
Jeez.
Speaking of terrifying,
I was gonna say we got Farku and Opal hiding in the shadows. A couple of rogues.
I'm really excited. I 3D printed a giant Godzilla, but I haven't taken all the supports off him, so he doesn't really look impressive yet. But he's a really cool Godzilla. Look at him. I'm loving this 3D printer, man. It's a lot of fun.
It looks like he has cool kind of like vines and moss kind of hanging out.
Nah, he's picking up a building. That's what the supports are.
Ah, okay.
Oh, it's intentional. Anyway, I'm just going to keep rambling if we don't get started. So, Pete, what's our topic today?
We're talking about possibly my favorite thing in role-playing games to run.
Favorite?
Yeah, this is like, I think, my number one favorite thing, or, style of encounter and overall event to run, and that is holidays and celebrations, festivities, and just role-playing out all the various kind of fun things that players get a chance to do when it's festival time, when it's party time.
I know, I love that kind of stuff. I will say I haven't done it super frequently, but Pete, that latest game that you were running, that the festivals were awesome. They were some of the highlights of the game.
Thank you. Some of my fondest memories of that game were from those festivals. We should talk about a couple of those at some point.
But yeah, and of course, if you have plenty to say, I'm sure you all have tons to say. Feel free to type along in the chat. We'll be reading, following along, and we'll have a big discussion together. A nice little Socratic seminar of sorts, where we all come to a conclusion.
Socrates.
Exactly, Socrates would want it this way. But yeah, let's start talking about holidays. So the big three things before we jump totally in that we're going to be covering, right, is holidays as like they come naturally, like as they exist in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're also going to be talking about something I'm personally stoked about, the idea of how do you run, like, so Halloween's coming up, right? And in your game, it's the middle of summer. How do you run a Halloween special? I think we're going to talk about that later on too, because actually a lot easier than you'd think. There are tons of different ways you can just kind of.
I think there's like one really good solution that we're going to bring up, but we'll save it.
Yeah,
let's do that last. Let's do that last. Yeah.
But yeah, let's just start talking. So
sure. So yeah, we're going to go over kind of first when we're talking about holidays. We'll talk about why, for one reason, that we think that they're kind of a great tool to have in the DM's tool belt. And then kind of what you can actually do and have players like engage in when you're at these festivals. Because a lot of the times, you don't want to just tell them, you go to a festival, what do you guys do? You want to have some stuff kind of prepared
for
that event, and very specific things that are, that are engaging for them. And the reason that we're talking about this now, naturally, is we are about to move into, in real life, Holiday Central. We're coming up on Holiday Alley in the end of October, November, December. It's just going to be raining holidays. And it's the most fun, in my opinion at least, to run that kind of stuff when it's happening in
Yeah.
the real world. So these will be a lot of kind of great tips for in your own games upcoming. Try running maybe a winter solstice this December, or whatever it is that you end up deciding, and whatever holiday you want to focus on.
I will say, there's nothing like more viscerally satisfying than when you're walking around and it's like, oh, all right, it's the first day after Thanksgiving, and that just begins the month-long Christmas music that's just everywhere. Every radio station, you go to a mall, it's playing Santa Claus is coming. It's every all. Ugh. There's nothing more viscerally satisfying than going and then playing in an adventure where I don't know, you have to go and stop the Grinch or something, right? It's just a lot of fun. Uh, it's a good release when you're like so frustrated with the damn Christmas music. Um, but yeah, when we're talking about running holidays and celebration, what do we really mean? And what I think we both are talking about here is putting players in a situation in the world, or maybe it's the people surrounding them in the world, where everyone's celebrating some sort of deal. In this case, we're talking about seasonal stuff like Halloween, Thanksgiving, um, the kind of solstice holidays, the veritable
The winter,
pile of religious
the
winter
winter pile.
holidays.
Yep.
Um, and your world can totally have stuff for that too. No reason why not.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
like every changing of season can mark an awesome, cool holiday event. And really, you can kind of come up with them for whatever reason you want, right? It can be for past events in the history of the world, or maybe for a specific location. It might have to do with a leader of your specific kingdom or empire in the world. Or again, it can just boil down to, well, it's summer now. Holiday.
Yes, and these things don't necessarily have to be tied to even specifically holidays, even though that's the context we're speaking in them
Mm.
about now. They can be anything. Maybe it's just a party in the town because recently the evil dictator that was ruling the town was overthrown, and now the town is kind of celebrating and blowing off some steam after this. Uh, I like Roger Twy's comment in chat. Party arrives in town and it's sorry, my friend, all of the temples are closed this week as they kind of roll in with their dead friend. That's a very sad, it's a very sad situation. But on the most part, holidays are generally fun for players. And Jeremy, you want to talk about why that is?
Because you get to do all sorts of cool holiday stuff.
You get to do
It's
stuff.
It's because of, for me, I mean, there's two things, right? One, exclusive holiday loot, radical, fun, cool. They get
Holiday
something
loot and
dumb
fun.
and it's fun. Even if it's super minor, it can just be really fun. And the second one is the events, right? What's going on in this festival that makes it so engaging, right? Why are you taking an entire session of your game to run this festival? And the answer is because there's fun shit to do there. That's
Yeah,
not the same stuff they're doing every week.
yeah, that's the big thing. It's that contrast because most of the time when you're playing D&D, even if you don't take the events around you seriously, and I think very few parties do, I think that most people are just fighting lots of monsters. They're doing lots of big world things. They're getting into political scuffles and moving around and sort of arguing with people. But when there's a celebration or a festival, you get a chance to see the characters in the situation that they are rarely in, which is just having fun, just hanging out, talking to people, drinking, eating, having those kind of role playing opportunities that are just very much a world apart from what their standard fare is.
Exactly. And especially like in a very baseline game of D&D, right? Your players go kill monsters. They get role playing opportunities to talk to each other as they're killing the monster. In a more dramatic game of D&D, right? There's maybe some tension before and after they're killing the monsters where they get to role play. But then you're taking this next step of, man, you guys are just having fun. what are you all like when you're just having fun? And that is a really, especially for players who play more kind of strung up characters, that's a really awesome time to like let their character unwind. Uh, Otherwise, they'll just go crazy. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. Um, Gives a really neat opportunity to really role play, and of course, it lets players get that competitive oomph without
Oh
really
yeah.
any stakes, right?
Oh yeah.
Except
Uh,
bragging rights.
and then, well, those are the biggest stakes of think. Like, I feel like there's more stakes in competing against your own allies for bragging rights than there is in most fights. Most monster battles don't feel like they have the same kind of stakes that, say, like an arm wrestling competition in the local town festival does.
Exactly. And there are any number of any
Yeah,
number
I'm
of
with you,
different
Shiva.
cool events and activities you can do. Arm wrestling is one of many that you can just put anywhere. You can
Oh
have
yeah.
arm wrestling anywhere. It can be a town, like a small village. It could be like a dude's hamlet in the countryside, and it's just a guy and his family. You can put arm wrestling anywhere. There are a ton of really cool events that you can all tie in, location based or anything. That's really fun.
But before
So
we kind of get into some of
yeah,
the, I was gonna say, before we get into some of like the details on what you can actually do, let's talk about like what you kind of need to do to really get going on a holiday. Like, what do you need to make a holiday feasible and work in your world? For starters, you need something that the holiday is about. You need an occasion, a reason for people to be kind of gathering and doing things. This can be, as we were talking about before, literally anything. It can be, a changing of the seasons. It can be, a festival like I was talking about for some kind of historic moment or some kind of big change that's happened in the region where it's happening. But you need to make sure that you know what that is, because if the players walk into a place people are just celebrating, it is going to be the first thing that they are going to ask. Any walking NPC is like, "Hey, what's going on? Why is everyone so excited? Why are there balloons everywhere?" So you need to be prepared with uh, that particular kind of idea. Um,
and more than that, right? Asking yourself that question, well, why are they celebrating? If you just keep asking why, eventually you'll stumble into an awesome
mhm.
holiday, even if you didn't come up with one. So let's just say it's the middle of like it's halfway through the summer, and there's no real reason, at least environmentally, why you'd have a holiday. You're like, I want them to have a holiday this time of year, and you start asking, well, why are they celebrating? You just decide, oh, they won a war. Oh, cool, they won a war. So maybe this is the signing of their peace treaty, right? And so then your next question is, well, who won the war? You ask us who, what, when, where, why, and it's like, oh, it was a famous general. Okay, cool. And this kind of ties in a lot of, well, what do the people look like? Maybe they're dressed up in funny general costumes, right? They all have wooden swords, and that ties into, all right, well, what are their events? Well, shit, I'll have an event where it's the wooden duels, right? They're dueling with the swords, with the wooden swords, and whoever's sword breaks first loses or something, right? And right there, we've just stumbled onto what the event looks like. A bunch of people with silly hats and maybe big cloaks, or Napoleonic esque like jackets, uh, and sword fights. Cool. We've just come up with an event like that because I asked what, or what did I ask? What and who?
Mm. And
What are they celebrating and who? Sorry, go
Trucifer
ahead.
in chat saying they would just roll a history check or it's just basic knowledge. Yeah, that's totally fine. Maybe this
Oh yeah,
holiday is really common and famous in the world. That's a great way to introduce it to players. And then when you set up a situation like that where the holiday is just accepted by everyone in the world, presumably, then you can kind of inform the players of the traditions and let them kind of describe maybe like how they celebrate or what they think of the holiday. They can establish opinions on it and start to talk about maybe their own personal traditions for the holiday and stuff like that. It gives a lot of context. I think it's great to just tell players like, yeah, you know about this. What do you do for it?
absolutely.
What is your opinion on this particular event?
Yeah, unless it's like a very specific regional holiday, like this is the day where this specific
Herferstraten.
town drew off or sent off the troll, right? Then maybe they might not know about it. But for the most part, I'd say players know what the holidays are if they're
Yeah,
major holidays.
absolutely.
and that actually just adds to the fun. Great, my character knows about this. Oh, and you know what? I'm gonna decide they're excited about it, and that's even better because then the players are buying in to this fun holiday.
Um,
Um,
so
so we
another thing that's going to be good.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Jeremy.
Well, I was just actually I think gonna do exactly what you're doing right
Ah,
now. Is
yes.
we have the holiday, right? We figured out, all right, we want to have a celebration of the end of some war where everyone idolizes this general. All right, cool. What are the events, right? What's the draw? What makes the players want to engage in this holiday?
Yeah, and there's tons of different things that one can do to pull people in, and the events are going to be a big one. Maybe it is a huge contest that happens every year in this place with a very big prize pool. Maybe there's someone that they want to meet that is going to be in attendance at this place. Maybe the king chooses to have audiences with the kind of regular citizens once a year on this important day, and he gets to meet with a few people, and the adventurers want a chance to talk to this person. Or maybe there's just some kind of natural phenomenon that can only be witnessed on this particular day. So it's just kind of just a narrative like, yeah, you want to go see what maybe the fantasy northern lights are, and they only happen once a year on this particular time, and there's a celebration for it. There are kind of
I want
countless
to
ways.
I want to stop on that one in particular, if you don't mind, Pete,
Oh,
because
please.
with it being at like a natural event like that, you have a really awesome framework of like how to end the night too, right? I assume it's an evening. It's celebration that spans into the evening. This
Mhm.
event happening at night, like the fantasy Northern Lights appearing once every decade or whatever, is a really really awesome way. Or maybe it's a meteor shower, or it could be anything. Really awesome way to have a cool closing dramatic scene to end this the festivities after everything.
For
I
sure.
really really dig that
And
one.
oh, yeah, no problem. I
Couldn't
agree.
help it.
And as a rule, I'm of the opinion that having kind of positive motivations for players to go to events like this are better than having kind of negative motivations. When I say that, what I mean is if you're going to pick something to make the players want to go, it is a very fun event. I'm of the opinion, at least, and you can do, there's tons of different ways to do it, but I think it's good to have something that is fun bring them to the fun place. Like, I don't think it's as satisfying to want to go to the Harvest Festival because you heard goblins are going to attack it and you just want to defend it, because then the players are going to be in their usual kind of hero mode. They're not going to drink and see the sights, they're going to kind of look around, secure defenses, and battle goblins. Uh, it's better to have something along the lines of gold motivating them, like, oh, there's going to be a huge reward, we're going to see this cool thing if we go there, and then maybe if the goblins attack, that still happens, and now there's an adventure at this festival. But bringing them there, I think it's more exciting personally. Again, this is all a question of taste, and maybe your own campaign, you do something different or need to do something different, but to bring them there for a positive experience is a better idea.
Exactly. And if you do want to tie in something like goblins attack or whatnot, you can put it in. I personally would make it a pretty light thing.
Mhm.
I wouldn't make it like a big deal. Um, it would be one of the minor things that happen that maybe then the people are also celebrating the heroes who drove the goblins off. A fight that isn't too challenging for them. That's just a break that you can put in if things slow down.
Yeah, for sure. And then, as one last kind of note, when you're establishing what your holiday is, again, and this is another, I'm speaking very subjectively tonight because these are my own kind of takes on and thoughts on how to run holidays, but I think it's a great idea to let your players know that this is going to happen before they're arriving at it. Like, if you're getting excited about a holiday, like for me at least, for Halloween coming up, I start getting excited about Halloween long before the actual date, and I don't actually care that much about the day of Halloween. I don't get excited about
Oh
giving out
yeah.
candy to trick-or-treaters. I just have a lot of fun with all of just the atmosphere and the decorations being put up and seeing the shift in the stores and just the world around me. And having that kind of anticipation for your characters in the game to know a time that they're going to come to this festival can, one, be a good kind of landmarker for adventure and kind of getting people to where they want to be at the right time. And in the same way, it can just be exciting for players to have something to like look forward to and a reason that they're adventuring and working towards like a goal.
Yep. It's also a really good reason to keep your characters in one place. if they're like, oh, we're gonna leave this town now, and you're like, oh shit, I really need them to stay here. Mention that on the way out they see all of the things being put up, all the decorations for the festival next. And the player's like, wait, shit, there's a festival.
Oh,
Yeah, and
seriously,
there's
a
gonna
festival.
be the fights, where they crown the champion of the arena.
Oh yeah, that's the
I need
one.
to be there. That'll the players will wait. Um, so I guess the next question, right? So what are we gonna do, right? What is our event gonna be? And there's so many different things you can go.
Infinite.
Really, the question is the difficulty here is picking one thing. It's taking all of the other stuff out of the equation and just focusing on what is my event. I see Irony Golem in chat saying gambling, big money. Hey, that can
Awesome.
be an awesome thing for an event, especially if maybe your event ties in with alcohol in some way or some sort of other drug maybe in your world. Really good reason, or maybe after a really successful harvest season, all great opportunities to tie in a lot of gambling because people got money to gamble. Um, but I guess the first thing is we got to start thinking about new characters, right? We got to start thinking of all the different people that are going to show up at festivals. Maybe they're NPCs that you want to introduce. Um, the thing about like festivals in particular is it doesn't matter if you're a rich noble or a poor peasant, you're celebrating the same holidays usually. It's really rare
Yes.
if you're not. And so this can be a really cool opportunity for maybe players to mesh and interact with some of those higher brow members of society if that's a kind of NPC you want to introduce. Or maybe there's a lowly peasant that actually gets really far in we said arm wrestling competition, really far in the arm wrestling competition. And you want the players to find out about a quest that he might have for them in the future. Maybe he's a wood chopper, a lumberjack, and there's some
Mhm.
beast in the woods, right? And you want to tell the players that, but there's no reason they'd go talk to this poor peasant otherwise. So there's a cool way to tie that in too.
Yeah, if he does well in the kind of the arm wrestling festival, players will like, and I think this is just human nature. Even if like your big heroic barbarian is in the arm wrestling contest, if the strange and small unknown peasant is able to even compete a little bit, everyone in the
Oh
party
yeah.
will love that character and will immediately connect with and be like, "Oh, I want to learn about who's this guy? Why is this guy so buff? I love this guy." I've
It's
seen
all
it
that
a
lumberjack.
million times. Oh yeah, cutting down all that wood, working those blacksmith bellows their whole life. There's tons of different kind of things there. As another kind of counterexample, one that I just thought of while I was thinking about holidays today, maybe the players have the chance to kind of they walk into a tavern and there's some just kind of peasant in there that's buying drinks for everybody, throwing around tons of gold, and he makes friends, fast friends with the characters by purchasing them food and alcohol and telling interesting stories and making jokes. And then later on they see this person the next day and they're no longer in peasant's garb, but it turns out that they are a local noble that the players have kind of unintentionally befriended at the tavern. And now, moving down the road, seeing these people outside of the context of a party, just as the players are different in the context of a festival, the NPCs have the opportunities to kind of act differently at these festivals as well. um,
Yeah, I mean, especially like people were just saying with the nobles, like young nobles, really awesome opportunity to get like, oh, the son of like the prince, maybe, you know, maybe he's not the prince himself, but maybe he's like, the prince's brother goes
mhm.
out partying, not a ton of responsibility. Sure, why not? Like really cool ways to tie the characters into the bigger things going on. And of course, everyone loves feast.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I
if
recommend. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh no, go ahead. You go first, Pete. I
I was
had
going to
said.
say, I recommend if you're a fan of feasts. As a child, I used to read a lot of Brian Jacques, his Redwall series, starring all of the various. It's basically a fantasy series where the main characters are all small animals like mice and squirrels. And I've
Mhm.
never seen anybody write as tasty food and as delicious sounding feasts. I used to get so excited as a kid to just hear about like they'd make up strange like elderleaf pies and buckleberry
It worked.
honey. Oh, it was so good. And that kind of stuff is just really fun for characters. And at the same time, if you're running this kind of feast, you can also create a lot of interesting conversation at the table as kind of the focus, while the just kind of fun food and environment is the backdrop for it.
Yeah, and I mean, hell, great way to introduce characters to NPCs is they're the cooks. They made this awesome pie. You
Mhm.
describe this delicious flavor of what do you say, elderberry pie, of the elderberry pie that you've never quite tasted. Your palate explodes with whatever, and then the player asks, "I want more pie," and one of the peasants can just say, "Oh yeah, that's over there. That's old lady Martha makes those pies," right? And then you find out later on that she's actually a hag and she bakes children into pies. And you know what? That's
And
fine because that's the dramatic conclusion later on.
oh, old
But
lady Martha, how could you betray me like this?
yeah, or maybe she's just an old lady who makes really great pies. Or maybe she's a young lady who makes really good pies.
That's
Or maybe
also
Martha's a
possible.
dude. I don't know, man.
That's
Regardless,
that's up to you.
it's fun.
It is fun. And in the same way, maybe just if they're sitting around a table with just a bunch of commoners, those commoners are probably talking about just what's going on in the world. So you can
Yep.
have them engaging in and overhearing conversations. And it's a great excuse for things just like, oh man, the king and his damn taxes, huh? He's really running everyone out of town. Like that kind of conversation where the players
Mm.
get to learn a little bit about what's going on in the grander kind of political, economic, social scheme of the world, get a sense of the city when people are kind of happy and talking at these places.
I
I say
completely
city
agree.
arbitrarily, but
Yeah, I mean, it could be a town, it could be a village, it could be anything. Or maybe it's a little darker, right?
mm,
Maybe they overhear peasants. Maybe they're not peasants. Maybe they're middle class. Maybe they're peasants. Who knows? Maybe they're lesser nobles. You overhear them talking to like overthrow someone, right? Or they're going to catch the tax collector next time he comes into town, and we'll see who'll be collecting then. And then one of the other people who's in on is just, oh, don't talk about that now. It's the day for festivities, and now the players are putting this really like, oh boy, shit. We
yeah.
just overheard these people talking about like attacking like the tax collector on the road. That's just his job. He's not a bad guy or
mm.
girl or
Or
whatever.
or
Or
maybe
maybe they are
maybe
evil
they are.
beings in your world. I
That's
don't know.
and maybe it's kind of that fun moral gray that you start to move into in that story. But there's
Yeah.
tons of cool storytelling opportunities that can be brought up just from getting to hear people talk in a natural environment like that.
And of course, lastly, your players can talk. You can just say,
Yeah,
you're all sitting at a
fair
long
point.
table in the center of, in the Baron's great hall, where everyone in the town is welcome to join in the feast. There are tables set out and food aplenty, and as you sit down, before you describe a couple things on the table. Just what do y'all do? I I grab a turkey leg, right?
This
And
fun stuff will come out of that almost every time, 100% guaranteed.
yeah, you can describe like the halfling drunkenly dancing on the table down the way, or maybe if you really want to cause chaos, it's a really overweight dwarf dancing on the table down the way, and you know, and you can make some crazy, fun little random events that can really spice up something as simple as you're sitting at a table eating some food. And then if you really want to make them happy, you just give them the benefit of the hero's feast the next day when they wake up and they're like, "I love
Oh,
feasts."
Heroes Feast!
Uh,
Jeremy, I as another kind of to move on from NPCs, as another
yeah, we
thing,
need to move.
I despise shopping in real life, but I love it so much in D&D. Oh, it's so much fun. Jerry, you want to talk about shopping?
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing, right? The thing is, shopping's so good for like a festival kind of situation. Every merchant in town is out with their best shit. 100%, because people at a festival, they're getting their drink on, they're willing to spend some cash, and that's a really cool opportunity for players to like haggle a little bit and maybe get some
Haggling.
cool, like I was saying, holiday specific loot. I don't know about you guys, but in my experience, when you're all hanging out and the players are coming into the town and it's their Night of the Dead, event, right? Their
Mm.
holiday is coming up for their Halloween, and everyone's hanging out having a good time, and they're seeing people going around in like silly costumes, like, oh shit, we don't have any costumes. And they come up to the merchant, and there are merchants that just have costumes. Players love that shit. They love people say, oh shit, I'm gonna get a troll mask. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get that. And then there's the one dark sullen player's like, I won't do anything. I just raise my hood. And that's fun, right? Because you have this amazing image of your party. Someone's wearing like just a sheet over their head with some eyes cut out for the ghost, you know. One person's wearing like a pumpkin, like a literal gourd on their head with the jack-o'-lantern face. And it's just fun, right? It lets the players have this goofy, we're just fucking around time. And if you establish that that's okay with like other people in the world doing it, your players aren't going to feel like it's breaking the suspension of disbelief, as long as it like makes sense that it's happening.
I see Irony Golem in chat has a fun one. Throwing tips to street comedians and performers. The
Oh
week's
yeah.
running up. Tailors and showmakers made a killing. The wine merchants, big money. It is one of the great things about festivals as well is that the economy of Dungeons and Dragons is such that heroes make so much more money and
Oh yeah.
spend so much more money than any of the people in the world that they interact with, except for like the top tier nobles. Most adventurers on kind of one adventure could earn their 50 gold that they find in their first level 1 dungeon. And in the economy of the most Dungeons and Dragons fantasy worlds, could just kind of settle down and live a happy life for a couple of years and live very comfortably. So that 400 gold that doesn't seem that much to the player in the context of a festival, like, oh, a gold piece, yes, you've bought a round of drinks for like 8 people. Oh, another gold piece, you've bought out every single you've bought out every single like necklace that this little local jeweler has made for, you know, presentation here. You can feel the heroes will feel with their money like they are wealthy and important and special and rich, because they'll just be able to buy anything they want uh, at these kind of smaller prices, assuming that they're buying things like costumes. I imagine a costume for this
Oh
festival
yeah. It
or
can
like a
be
goofy
anything.
mask, a silver piece, something along those lines, if it's an
If
expensive one.
that.
Yeah, if it's like a very
Yeah.
high end one.
The merchant tells you it's a silver piece with a wink and a smile, and then you pay them that, and they're like, "Oh, well, thank you very much." You know.
Can I get any of your friends anything? Just
Speaking of the necklaces you mentioned, that brings us to one thing that I really love here, which is trophies.
oh yeah.
Players fucking love trophies. It can be a necklace, right? Or maybe it's a special bead or a charm or something that players can get throughout the event. Maybe they have to go to different places and different people have them. Maybe it's like a scavenger hunt that you can set up. Maybe you win a necklace or something for each event that you place in based on how you place. And at the end of the festival, there's some cool thing. Maybe you're just, you know, maybe it's just bragging rights, right? That alone is enough to encourage most players to want to win.
Oh, for sure.
But trophies like that are super cool. They're super fun, and they're an awesome, like those collectibles are great.
A real blast. And there's one more kind of thing. If you want your players, if they've been hoarding gold and they have a lot of stuff, there's no reason you can give them kind of like one-time festival shopping options. You can do something
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh well, there's a strange like non-regional merchant that has moved their way into this place, and this foreign trader has magic items among his wares that he's selling at outrageous prices, but he's actually selling magic items, which
Oh
gives
yeah.
you a situation one where you're able to allow your players to buy magic items without setting up something permanent like a magic item shop, which can
Yep.
sometimes be a little bit problematic. And it also creates that vibe for players where, like in real life, if you go on vacation somewhere or you go to a foreign place or just somewhere you've never been before and you see something that you want, there's all of a sudden this kind of onus of, I have to buy this now, or when am I going to get another chance to purchase this thing? Like, this is either a once in a year or maybe even once in a lifetime chance to buy this thing right now.
Oh yeah. And especially when you're doing that like rare trader from outside of the kingdom or whatever that's come here just for the event. Best way to tie in, I think, I've done this before they even existed in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Have them be selling common magic items. Go open Xanathar's Guide, go to the common magic item section, and just pick a bunch of those and
Some
just
magic
say,
items are so good.
You see a child running around with a wand, pointing it at people, and their faces crook up in giant smiles, and they're like, "Ah!"
Just
For
give
the
me,
wand of smiles, right? And
just
then
give me
players will be
that.
like, "What's going on? I want one of those," and that can lead them to this guy. You don't have to have random townspeople being like, "Ah, I hear that merchant selling +3 magic armor." No, they fucking wouldn't care about that. But the random townspeople would say, "Oh, kids bought those damn wands from the merchant." Oh, it's a cool way to tie stuff.
That's a really good idea, Jeremy.
I mean, I've done that before. I've done that
Yeah,
shit before. I
it's a
mean,
good
most
move.
of my homebrew magic items were a little stronger than common magic items, but they were still stupid. Anyway, doesn't matter. Uh, Talking about more unique stuff you can get from events, gift.
Oh,
Everyone loves gift. I don't know
yeah,
about you, Pete,
I
but
love gifts.
when players get really attached to NPCs, like really attached, one of the best things that I think you can do is have that NPC buy them a gift.
I
And
agree
a
100%.
festival like that is like I've seen players like well up from like, oh my god, like that was so touching. Especially if they're like deeper, deeper meaning. And likewise, a player giving a gift to an NPC or to another player, right? Those are really cool moments.
For
It's
sure.
touching, right? It makes, especially when an NPC gives a gift to a player, especially a heartfelt one. It really breaks that wall of like, fuck, this feels real, and that I love that. That's a really
Um,
those are the moments that you're going for when you're playing role playing
Jeremy,
is to have that feel.
if I could point out one of the most memorable moments from our last campaign of all time, where I did this thing where I was running a festival, and I told the players that gift giving was a part of this festival and something that was going to happen, and asked if anyone wanted to get anyone gifts. And this is something that you, Jeremy, did. Would you like to talk about this? Would you
No,
like me
Pete,
to
I'm a
talk about
little
it?
I'm a little embarrassed.
Uh, do you mind if I tell
Oh,
the story?
please, please. I
Uh,
just I couldn't say it right.
Very well. Um, Jeremy's character was a half ogre, and they were in a place that had very rich mines with a wide variety of ores in them. And a couple of weeks before this festival, Jeremy just tells me he's going to go into the mines and he just wants to mine stuff. And he asks like what he gets, and I was like, "Well, are you looking for anything?" And he's like, "No, just rocks and stuff, like interesting rocks." And I was like, "Yeah, you have any interesting rocks you want, and then also one really nice diamond." Um, and so, after his time mining, I give him that. And then at this festival where gift giving happens, Jeremy just comes up with all of these different interesting rocks and starts giving them to people as gifts, but not just as, I'm giving you this rock because I thought it was pretty. It was, I'm giving you this rock because it reminds me of who you are in some elaborate way. And without going through all of the details, Jeremy gave one character a huge lump of coal, which they looked at confused. And Jeremy's character uh, turns to them and says something along the lines of, um, "This coal is it's." I can't do Bucket's voice. Essentially, he
No,
says
you can't do
coal.
bucket.
I can't even come close to it. Coal is dirty and it's it doesn't look very nice, and a lot of people ignore it, and it's very common. But it's also very useful, and it keeps people warm. And it is mundane, but it's important. And Jeremy just kind of gives this guy this coal and goes, "You're a coal person, like me." And it was crushing and really heartfelt. And it, one, said so much about Jeremy's character while also being a really cool moment. And creating these opportunities for players to kind of interact in that way and show off what their own characters are like through this is really cool, and it's something that I'll never forget from that campaign.
Same, yo.
Yeah.
Same. I had to goof that up a little because I'm getting
Yeah, well,
sad.
that's a an old story. But let's talk about, if we're not talking about sad stuff, let's talk about fun stuff. Like another thing you can do at a festival: playing games.
All right, here's what everyone's been actually waiting for: the
Yes,
main attraction, the events,
it's
right?
always that's always the thing. It's like the big events and contests and stuff.
Yeah, this is what's gonna draw your players to want to go to the festival. All the other shit is like cool. They're gonna enjoy it a ton along the way. They're probably gonna like it more than the games, to be honest. But the games are what's gonna tie them in the first place. So if your games suck, players might not go to your festival. So let's think about what some of these events are and what kind of events you'd pick. I mean, like I mentioned earlier with the celebration of the war and the general and the sword fighting, right? We kind of walked down that steps. Um, you can do it that way, right? Think about what games make sense for the event. I think it's a good idea.
Mhm.
But more than that, think about what games make sense for your players.
Oh yeah.
You got a barbarian? Pete, what would you think a great game for a barbarian to
I mean,
really tie in and draw in
I can
that
think
tough guy?
I think there are. I honestly, I'm four of them come to mind. I'm picturing if I could rally through them. Arm wrestling. I'm thinking an eating contest where they're just like. I'm picturing a one of the hammer strength things where they just
Oh yeah.
smash it down and the thing explodes up at the top. And then also, I imagine if you really want to make it the main central focus, if that was the character that you really want to give a chance to highlight at this festival, or there's more people that rely on strength or cunning and fighting, you could do just like a bare hands fighting pit, that kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Bare knuckle boxing would be a really fun one. As a Frog says, halfling tossing.
Hey, that
that sounds
actually
mean
is
and
like
also really fun.
that. Yeah, honestly, that's pretty cool. I almost see that like a oh shit,
It's
like a relay race, right? Where the strong guy has to like lift a thing and then the halfling go under it. They have to throw the halfling across like a pond or something, but if they don't get all the way across, they have to swim back and get thrown again. Right? You can make a multi-level like race, which would be cool.
Nerds Table says Goblin Ball, and that is another thing. Is just make something up. Like, it can be anything. You can make up Goblin Ball and figure out a way to make this weird sport work in the. I'm laughing at irony.
Yeah, no, I love Irony Golem's idea, the contest. A famous fighter or like a soldier or something, right? Someone who's well respected, who's got a good, know they got some good gear, kind of leaves their hammer in the middle of the room and says, "This hammer belongs to whoever leaves with it. Have fun." And that's your competition, right? It's everyone fighting over this sick hammer. I mean,
that is a
put
really good one.
some gear on the table for it as a serious reward, but that's a really fun
Oh my
event.
god! I just picture the drunk kind of old retired dwarf adventurer walking in full gear and just kind of like stands up. Everyone, listen up! And he just like tosses the thing down on the table. That's really evocative and sounds.
And of course, there's a whisper of the townspeople. Oh, that's genuine dwarven steel.
Oh yeah,
right? It's like, and the players are like, wait, it's good, it's important. What? I don't know anything about it, but I want it, right? And they were excellent.
If the weapon has a name, all the better. That's Undvir.
Undvir, the Hammer's Wrath.
The Hammer's Wrath. It's very good.
Just dumb name. Excellent name though.
And just come up with contests and things to do that play to different characters and the party's strength. If you have a ranger, an archery competition. If you have a rogue, maybe it's like tightrope walking or something along those lines. There are countless. I guarantee you can find a contest for every character. Maybe it's your cleric and it's just the spinny cups game where they have to look really closely, or your wizard will just use some kind of clairvoyance or divination magic to look through the cups. However you want to do it, there's a way to test every single member of any class with this kind of stuff.
You don't have to make tests that specifically are for certain classes. One of the things I loved doing, I say recently, some time ago, I ran a campaign where a couple of the characters kind of clashed in a way. Their characters just did not get along. They butted heads a lot. But we had a festival. And in this festival, there were a bunch of different silly competitions. There was the wrestling, right? The wrestling competition. There was the eating competition. There was the archery competition. And at the end of the night, there was a dance-off.
Oh, yeah.
Where they had to form into couples to dance. and none of them they were new to the town, so they didn't know any NPCs to dance with. And these two players, these two characters that clashed, rogue and sorcerer, charisma and finesse, came together to dance in the dancing
Oh, that's
competition,
wonderful.
and they blew it away. I mean, they did really well. They rolled really well, but it was this great moment of like these two characters who fucking hate each other actually like came together and they won a thing, and it was great. It was a really awesome role playing moment for to kind of mend that breaking bond. Um,
That sounds really awesome.
yeah, I love those team based events. As you can tell, I was talking about the halfling tossing and how much I love that one.
Oh
I
yeah.
love team based events; they're great. The three legged race. I mean, mechanically, how do we handle events? Well, that's another thing, right? If it's a fighting thing or like it's a wrestling match, I mean, it's a wrestling match. They just don't have
Yeah.
weapons. Just
Yeah.
roll it out like a fight.
First one to like grapple and ping, and it's just a lot
Yeah.
of like contested athletics checks, or if they do different tricky moves, you figure out how to do it. Like we talked about in skill checks last week.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, like if it's gambling, there's a million different ways to do gambling. Um, I mean, we can't even begin to go over the different
yeah.
ways to do it. One of the things I really like is just rolling a number of d6s, and then oh, you're cheating and you successfully cheat. You add an extra d6 to your roll, and you're gonna drop the lowest or something like that, right?
Yep.
It's a really good way to kind of tie that in, where yeah, the cheating or advantage or whatever helps you, but not guarantees. And I like those kind of deals.
And
Um,
I was gonna say, with a lot of these contests, it's okay to have some of these things that are floating around that are trivially easy. That are yeah, I see Dancing with the Heroes, pretty fun.
yeah,
Um, there are a lot of like these trivial. They can be really trivially easy for the heroes on some of these things. For example, the barbarian hitting the strength thing, and maybe there's some kind of small prize for it. Just make it so that the barbarian with their strength is almost always going to succeed and crush it out of the water with like any reasonable roll. And then like one they get one they get the prize, and two, now they have this moment where it shows like, yes, you and your party are a cut above the average individual. Everyone looking at you is going to be like, oh man, that guy's a monster, he beat the strength challenge. They become minor heroes of the festival just by their presence and the way that they handle themselves. And that feels awesome as a hero. It's like you are a hero and you party and have fun like a hero as well.
I don't know. I like that they can lose.
Oh, I'm not saying to make ones that they
I
can't lose,
like
and I
I
think that
no,
there
I
should
mean
be.
like one of the yeah, I was talking about that festival. One of the best things is the fighter, our party's fighter, lost like immediately in the wrestling competition, and it was awesome, right? Because the whole night he was just in all the other competitions trying to redeem himself, and it was great. And I think he won the archery competition, which was a little sore from our ranger there, but it was
Uh,
awesome. It was a
some
ton of
salt.
fun, right? The redemption of like I'm good at this, I swear, guys. But when you do competitions like that, maybe do a couple rounds might be a cool way of also handling it with like increasing difficulties. Eating competitions a great way to do that. Maybe have it be 3 rounds, and you can describe the competitors, because I think that's something that a lot of people kind of get lost in the weeds, right? It's like, oh, there's an eating competition. Okay, I want to do it. All right, roll a Constitution saving. Well, wait, what? You don't just jump right to there.
Yes.
Describe the other participants, the air of excitement, the smell, the aroma of the food, how it smells so good, the pies, just incredible. And that's then describe round one, how everyone's trying, but like the little gnome across from you is having a hard time on just half of a pie, but you're having no issue at all.
Yeah.
And then like by the second round, it's like, all right, you're feeling a little nauseous, but most people have dropped out. And by the third round,
Except for one, like
yeah, except for one who opposes you. By the third round, the delectable scents of the pies are now nauseating. As right? Building this kind of drama. You can make intense drama for something as dumb as a pie eating. And that's awesome.
it
Because
is.
that's another feel that players don't really get. That extreme competitiveness. But yeah, that competitiveness, because it's a
Yeah.
cooperative game in its core D&D, and being able to really be competitive.
And this may just be personal taste for me, but when it comes to festivals, I really enjoy both doing and hearing as a player a lot of like really descriptive language. I just have fun listening to a DM talk about how pleasant and how inviting and
Yep.
fun my surroundings are. Like I could probably spend like 10 minutes, or maybe that's exaggeration. I bet you I could go 5 minutes of just listening to a DM talk about how cool my surroundings are
You could
before I
go 10
started to be
minutes. I
like,
know from experience.
yeah, I could go 10 minutes. Um, and I would
Easy.
be so comfortable just listening to a DM talk about pretty fireworks and giggling children with like sparkling sticks and the sound of drunken brawls in the tavern next to me. I absolutely love that stuff personally. And I think a lot of people do. I don't think that's necessarily uncommon.
But yeah, before we move on to the very last kind of part, well, actually, yeah, we'll go to the next kind of thing. The next kind of idea, right? Because moving on from the games, you can come up with a million different ones. You can find a trillion different ways to actually run those mechanically. That's not what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
Um, but why? What is this like? We tied into talked about this a little bit earlier. But what's the history, right? What's the reason for the event, and what kind of like lore about the world can you tell from it? Because you can use events for really cool foreshadowing for your campaign. Maybe, God, I'm trying to come up with a great example. Um, uh, Perhaps people have dressed up in these costumes, right?
Mm.
Uh, and all these costumes are about trolls or about the undead, right? Everything's the undead. There we go, easy. So people have like stupid skeletons painted onto their clothes, and they're wearing ghost helmet or ghost sheets and stuff, and um, that's kind of their shtick. They got zombie makeup on, and they're all having a great time. And it's about how one day every 100 years, said the dead rise in the marches to the east. But that doesn't actually happen, or does it? Right? We get this cool tie-in, and maybe there's a villain later on who does that, right? Who uses the necromantic energies to raise the dead, right? This can be a cool foreshadowing of something's going to happen, but with a twist.
And there can be a lot of fun ways to kind of go about telling people these things. Like Jeremy gave the example of the costumes is cool. You can have the people going by little like theater troops that are acting out plays on the streets, and they're acting out the the historical event that led to this festival. The assassination of the particular king, or whatever the argument between the gods that led to the new mountain being arisen out of the ground. That's the base of the village, or whatever the event is. The bard might be singing a song about telling the tale of this event. Whatever it is, you can come up with very fun and interesting ways to introduce it to the players.
Yeah, and I love like those kind of things tying everything together. So in the
Me too.
part where Pete's like the mountain rising from the earth, maybe the winner of the arm wrestling competition gets to be the one who raises the pole, which has like the big canvas on it, which makes a cool ceremonial like fake mountain that they can then
Yeah, that's
lift up in
awesome.
the city square. Or perhaps if the festival's to champion some great hero of lore, uh, the winner of the archery competition, who maybe was this great hero, gets to ride around on a chariot, just a palanquin held by the village, the other people in the competition, and they get to just run around through the whole city on top of this big, shiny. It's not actually gold, but it's painted gold because these are peasants. Palanquin. They get to run through the whole city, and it's really cool. And they get to meet like the local duke, who gives them a ceremonial knighting. That's a great one.
Yeah, that
A
sounds really
title or a
fun.
knighting, awesome way to really add some drama to that.
The honorary hero of ages. Like,
Yeah, exactly, right? And then you tie in how because they're the hero of the ages, they can do something really cool later on, and then they're like, "I thought it was just dumb." Anyway, that's
yeah, like when
you
they
don't
go
have to
to
do
like
that, but like
when
you
they
can.
go to open up when they go to open up like the ancient mine that only the hero of ages can access. As they're trying to break in, one of the players just they walk up to it and the door just opens for them because they are the hero of ages.
I
uh,
was thinking the sword in the stone, but that works really well too.
the sword in the stone also is an excellent one. I like that a lot.
But
And
yeah, these are awesome, and they really make, like people were saying earlier, make your players feel like the festival heroes. Like they aren't just going around beating up monsters, getting rich. They're beloved, right? The people like them. And especially if the people of the town didn't like them before. This
Oh
is a
yeah,
really great opportunity for the players to redeem themselves to some degree in the eyes of the townsfolk.
yeah, I agree. And as kind of a last, it's kind of a last point. Actually, I was going to talk. Actually, I'm going to take like one moment to talk about this, which
Detour.
is, uh, yes, the festival heroics. If there's some kind of event at the festival, it's not a bad idea to, if you want to introduce some kind of conflict. Even though a lot of the times it's nice to just have one that's pure and just pleasant and fun. But if you want to introduce some kind of conflict, uh, like I was saying before, as a random example, goblins attack the event. When they do that, they become even more the heroes of the festival. Make sure if they defend the festival, they're performing their heroics very much in the public eye, and people will react to that. They don't pay for drinks after that point. Just make sure there's little things to reward the players for that kind of stuff. And make sure, in my opinion at least, give the festival some time to get going so they have, again, that contrast of this is what's fun. Now the thing is interrupting what I was having fun doing. We'll do
Mm.
that so we can continue having fun. And that's just kind of like a good overall structure for that kind of encounter. But Jeremy, I know that you wanted to talk about how to move these
Yes.
into. We
So
almost we
okay.
almost forgot.
No, we didn't forget. I've been watching the time.
Okay.
So we've talked about how to like events that naturally grow into your game, or if you want to just come up with your own festival because you decide it's been a long time and I want to run a festival and I think it'd be fun. The players would really like it. Maybe they're getting really stressed out about the game and what's been going on, and the tension in the story is just really getting to them. I've run games where like it's really gotten to not my players' characters, but to my players. So like they have been stressed out and emotionally like, shit, dude, this is just really getting to me. And festivals are a great way to like lighten that. But let's say you're in a situation where the players are out in the middle of the fucking woods, right? They're not by a town, so there's no reason, or God forbid, they're in a dungeon, right? And there's no reason that they can just have a big festival all of a sudden, but you kind of want that. Maybe it's Halloween coming up, you want to run a Halloween game, or it's the winter solstice, or it's Valentine's Day, or whatever the hell you pick.
That'd be a fun one.
Valentine's Day is one. Um, a great way to do it, and I've seen this done. I can't remember where, but I've seen this done plenty of times, and we're not the first people to come up with it. But what I love to do is I describe so all of course all the players are in on it. You tell them that there's going to be a holiday game, uh, and you talk to them about it, right? That it's going to be a fun holiday game. It's not going to be super important, You're going to play your characters with your same equipment, um, and everything, but you know, it's not going to be obviously right now because you're in the middle of a dungeon, and it's also good for when players aren't there when you only have less than the full party. What I like to do is I say you're sitting around the campfire and you're telling the tale of that time you blank. Right? Great way to kind of fade in to, yes, this happened in the past.
That's great.
Holiday special, right? You stopped the Gronch from stealing Solstice.
Yes, that's what we did last year on DnDTime for anyone that missed our holiday special last year.
And then you can play out an entire holiday campaign, and that's just your players sitting around the fire talking. And that's them reminiscing on what happened. And of course, people think like, well, what happens if they die? They can't die then because that happened in the past and they're not dead. Well, you can run that a bunch of different ways. Yeah. They were resurrected. There's one way. One way I really like is you die, right? They died. And they're just like, well, what happened? We're here. And then you can say as a dungeon master, well, that's not what really happened because, right? And then you can move them into a different something else that happened, right? But exactly, the wizard showed up. And
no, you're not remembering it right. And that gives players a lot of really fun opportunities to really invest in that kind of story and to take those like out of character moments where they're speaking like their character talking about the event. Where maybe one of them wins the arm wrestling contest and the dwarven character, it's always the dwarf that's the one that you think of, goes, if I recall correctly, I believe I was the one that won that arm wrestling contest. No, that's not how I remember. That's
exactly.
And that's a lot of fun, and you don't have to invest in that kind of way and have that meta narrative, but that's like a cool thing to do.
Well, the reason I love that so much is that really ties into the collaborative storytelling experience
Indeed.
that can be Dungeons and Dragons. Not every game of D&D is, but it can be. And giving players the agency to help say what actually happened during this fun flashback holiday sequence is great. It's just a ton of fun.
For sure.
There's no stakes because, well, the players are still alive, so they obviously didn't die. Maybe they failed whatever mission they needed to do for that event, but and then it ends on a solemn note of, wow, we really fucked that up, didn't we? Jeez. I forget about that one sometimes, huh, guys?
Oh man, we never can go back there again.
I've had that one before. I've had that one more than once.
Oh yeah. But yeah, we're kind of running down on time, but I guess that's kind of all I had to say about holidays. I really love holidays and festivals and parties in D&D, and I highly recommend trying to run some of that kind of stuff.
Hey man, and there's no need to have everything be canonical. We just told you a very canonical way of tying in holiday events. You don't have to do that.
Oh yeah.
A lot of players are totally cool with saying, I just want to play my character, or I want to play a different character and do a holiday event. And you can do that, and it's totally cool. Nothing wrong with doing a holiday one-shot. But if you want, you can tie it in with that kind of backflash storytelling thing. And that's just a cool strat.
Yeah, so, for sure.
I thought this was a super helpful talk. Holy shit.
I did too.
I love this.
I did too. She was saying, now I need to run a holiday episode or a game. I am with you. I have a festival coming up in one of my games, one of my my home games right now, where I'm running Queen of the Fade, Titania's Wedding, which is going to be an absolute. It's going to be an absolute blast, and that's going to be a real elaborate and showy festival. So I'm excited for that. But
sounds radical.
Yeah, that's
thank you, by the way. Simple Twist for the follow. We super appreciate your support.
Oh, thank you.
If any of you know folks who you think would like D&D Time, any of our incredible shows here on the channel, we have DnDTime Talks, which you just watched, a show where Pete and I discuss all things Dungeons and Dragons. Next week, Pete, what are we going to talk about?
Next week on Wednesday, we are going to be discussing, as we're moving into, again, the spooky time, we're going to be talking about horror games, how to run a game that's a little bit scary or a little bit dark, which is not something that I think me or you have a ton of experience in. I've run a few of those kind of things, though, and I'll tell you what I learned from it.
Yeah, I think that'll be a really good collaborative discussion.
For sure, for sure.
And then, of course, the other content that we run on this stream. On Fridays, we run Pete and Jeremy's D&D Time, 3 1-hour-long one-shot adventures in our fantastical world of D&D Time. We are in the midst of our holiday season. Whoa!
I wonder why we're talking about this.
The Carnival of Souls. The Carnival of Souls is our month-long Halloween spectacular. And this year, Bartholomew, the very powerful wizard, has been kidnapped again by, this time, an evil entity known only as the Nightmare Court. Will our players track him down and rescue him, or is all lost? Find out in 3 weeks, but also throughout the course of the next 2 weeks.
Maybe they fail and D&D time ends. If everyone
who knows,
fails,
man?
If everyone fails next week, does the Carnival of Souls event just get canceled and the world has changed?
We'll have to find out.
Yeah, I suppose we will. And then also tune in on the Sunday after that for
Saturday.
Oh, I'm sorry. For Saturday, where Jeremy will be running D&D Time Behind the Screen, where he builds an adventure, a kind of a dungeon delve style adventure for D&D Time Delves on Sunday, where players will actually run through it. What time do you usually start Behind the Screen, Jeremy?
I'm starting Behind the Screen at 1 p.m. Pacific this Saturday. It's going to be really cool. I'm super stoked for the adventure we're going to build for Sunday. It is something totally outside the fucking box. It's something out of the OG Greyhawk modules. So this, I mean, it's not actually from that, but it's gonna feel like that. For perspective, there was an OG Greyhawk module where, and by OG I mean original gangster, but there's an original module for Greyhawk where I don't remember what it was called precisely, but you end up going through like a dungeon and end up on the wing of like a Boeing 747 that's flying through the air, and that's where the battle is. It's gonna be weird. I'm super excited for it. It's gonna be a ton of fun to
level
build.
19, so that everyone knows.
Oh yeah, level 19.
Which is some high level content. So if you've never seen high level play, you're going to see some terrifying things happen, I
Yeah,
assume.
I think for those who may be interested, I know there's a lot of you. We're going to be building what would be okay acceptable as like an end of campaign boss kind of fight. It should be pretty sweet.
Ooh.
I'm wicked stoked.
Yeah, I'm excited to play in it. I can never watch behind the screen because I'm in those games, but I'm
and then you can
excited
see
to play
it
on
played
Sunday.
out. You can see it played out on Sunday. DnDTime Delves starting at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's about 3 to 4 hours long, probably closer to 4, given the higher level and the kind of drama of it. It should be really cool this week. I'm really excited. We have a special guest too,
which
joining us for DnDTime Delves.
Which I think we can just say it, right? It's one of our D&D timers, Jeremy, if you would. It is
yes. Psychopath 23, aka Fluffy or Whoosh.
Whoosh. You see it all the time on Pete and Jeremy's D&D time.
One of our oldest players. We're inviting them to play with us. It should be a lot of fun. I really dig the character they've built up for this. It's not Fluffy, but I'm super into it.
I can't wait to meet them. So yeah, that's it. Check out our other stuff. So we got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Actually, next Tuesday is DnDTime Worlds, which I run Homebrew Worlds. We're going to continue that, and then Wednesday we're back to Talks again. It's going to be fun. There'll be announcements. There'll be celebrations. There'll be DnDTime Carnival of Souls, favorite time of year for
shenaniganery.
Indeed, but I think that's it for me. And so, without further ado, thank you everyone for hanging out and watching and joining us. And I'm Pete,
and I'm Jeremy. And this is DnDTime Talks.
Good night.
Bye-bye.